I tried to go pro in Fortnite in 30 days this season and I completely failed. But over these 30 days, I learned 3 valuable lessons on why I failed to go pro, and I want to teach them to you guys so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made and go pro. The first reason I wasn't able to go pro was time, and this can be broken down in a couple of different ways. The first is that 30 days is an incredibly unrealistic time span to go pro in. Realistically, going pro in 30 days is practically impossible, and there just simply wasn't enough time to improve as much as I needed. The second way that time had a large impact was the fact that I was simply trying to juggle multiple things at once. Trying to balance school, going pro, and making content was simply too hard to do on a consistent basis, and I knew personally that I couldn't do worse in school or drop my content, so the first time slot that went was the practice sessions of Fortnite. This resulted in me failing to practice as much as I should have. One of the other places I had to cut back on was my health. During this whole month, I cut way back on my exercise regimen and my sleep. This is less clear to prove its exact effects, but the decreases in my health definitely hindered my improvement over the month. Although it was a lot to balance, I definitely had some personal blame for my failure to properly manage my time. Although I did spend an exorbitant amount of time working on content, I definitely wasted a lot of time on Twitter and YouTube. And as a student in school, I 100% should have been more focused on my schoolwork so I could have less homework to focus on when I got home from school. Another issue I had was that I focused my time towards the wrong things. Going into the challenge, I knew that I was a weaker fighter and I objectively did not focus on my fighting enough. Instead, during this month, I have focused on refining my strengths as a placement-heavy IGL. This was a blatant failure on my part. I should have put the majority of my focus onto my fighting and my off-spawn situations. I need to be going into the VODs and watching good fighters and also understanding the mistakes that I am consistently making. During this challenge, I VOD reviewed literally 0 of my own arena games during this challenge, despite the fact that it was my biggest weakness. Another large weakness of mine going into this challenge was my aim. I focused a lot on my shotgun aim, which was very good, but my tracking was still way below average after this month, and this is mostly due to the fact that I just straight up didn't practice it enough. Anyways, we've covered how I've used my time enough already, so let's go on to the next reason why I failed to go pro in 30 days. My largest issues as the path to pro series went on was my teammates. I started off the series with my duo Spooky, and we were really good together, and both of us were improving at a rapid rate. Then around midway through the challenge, Spooky lost motivation to play the game and he switched over to Valorant. After Spooky, I bounced around duos for a little bit and had some success, but I couldn't get any of the duos to actually stick. Looking back on it, finding a duo after Spooky should have been my only priority because it's pretty difficult to, play in a duos tournament if you don't have a duo. This process of finding a duo also taught me a lesson in what I value in a duo that I learned unfortunately a little bit too late. When looking for a duo, I was mainly focused on finding the best player that I could find. This resulted in me playing with a few players who were harmful to my improvement because although they were really good, they played very little, which meant that I couldn't practice with them as much as I wanted. From this, I created 2 criteria that I'm going to start using in the future when looking for duos. 1, having the motivation to grind, and 2, having the motivation to learn from their mistakes. Realistically, considering my skill, I'm not going to find someone who right away we're good enough to go pro together. This means that playing with someone who is way better than you isn't beneficial at the non-pro level if they aren't facilitating your success as a player. By focusing on these 2 criteria more than just pure skill, it would have resulted in worse short-term placements, but in the long run, I would have had a much better improvement outcomes than what I actually did in actuality by focusing on skill over motivation and hard work. Let's move on to the next reason why I failed to go pro. Early on to the challenge, I had a clear understanding of what I needed to work on to get better. I was scrimming every day and improved dramatically. As time went on though, my mistakes started to become more nuanced beyond the most simple things, and I lost track of how I should have improved. Looking back on it, if I had just taken one day to sit down and fully VOD review in the middle of the challenge, I could have easily seen that I need to put all of my time into fixing my off-spawn problems and some of my mid-game rotation calls. As this challenge went on, I lost my direction in where I needed to improve on, and this really hurt my motivation. This could have simply been fixed by setting a clear goal of what I wanted to work on every single day. On my journey to going pro, I learned 3 key lessons. 1, managing and tracking your time spent playing the game and to make sure you're getting the most efficient practice is the most important aspect of going pro. 2, when finding a teammate, finding someone who is motivated to work and improve will result in much better outcomes than focusing on skill. And 3, setting daily goals is extremely important for finding consistent motivation and keeping yourself on a consistent track of improvement. This 30-day journey on my path to pro was so much fun to make, and although this series is coming to an end, Phoenixly content is not, so make sure to go check out my Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, and second channel if you're interested in seeing more content in the future from me, and I'll see you next time. Peace.